So this is our last session together. We've spent a great deal of time thinking about Vacation Bible School, whether you are a church who's doing VBS for the very first time, you're still thinking about doing VBS, or you have had VBS for decades. I hope that you found these sessions helpful as we say yes to VBS. And there's one more area I want us to talk about, and that is saying yes to post-VBS. A lot of times we do that week of VBS or that weekend of VBS really well. We've prepared, we've planned, a lot of kids and families have come, we've had our kickoff event, we've had our celebration event, and then it's over. And we don't see the kids and families again till the next year when they come to Vacation Bible School. So how do we bridge that gap? And it's worth it. We discovered that a child who is active in church may only attend the church 1 or 2 times a month. A child who is actively involved in church is a child who's likely only there 1 or 2 times a month. So if we think of that in terms of Vacation Bible School, a traditional 3-hour, 5-day VBS equals 7 months of church. That's pretty amazing, right? But we want those kids not to come just 1 or 2 times a month or once a year for a week-long VBS. We don't want to say, hey, see you next year. We want to say, hey, we'll see you next week. So what do we do to build that bridge? How do we connect our church and VBS to the entire family and to our community? Guess what? You already know the first thing. Pray. Pray and ask God for a vision to make this connection strategy into your community so that families who come to your church for the very first time or they just come for VBS, pray that He will reveal to you how you can connect those families to your church throughout the year. Here are some practical things to do as you're praying and searching for that. Think about the typical families that attend your church now. What are they like? Demographics, that's a big word, and that sociologists use to talk about the characteristics of people in a given place. So what are the characteristics of your families? Where do they work? What is their socioeconomic status? Are they mostly married in a traditional environment? Are they divorced? Are kids raised by grandparents? Do you have a lot of military influence? Do you have an immigrant population? What does it look like, the families that are in your particular congregation? What does that look like? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses as a church family? Now, think about your community. What's a typical family in your community? Are they different than the folks inside your church? Or do the folks in your church kind of match the people outside your church? Do a compare and contrast list. Brainstorm with your follow-up team so that you know who you are and you know who the people are you're trying to reach. And that will help to define the strategies that you use to build a connection. So once you know who's inside the church, who for the moment is outside the church, what are the things you guys do well? What are your strengths as a church family? What ministries do you have already in place that you could use to connect with the people that are in your community? And then think about the people in your community. What are some needs that they have? Is it education? Is it food insecurity? Is it poverty? Do a lot of families live in apartment complexes or other multifamily housing? Do a lot of people come from other countries and they're here just temporary? What do the people need in your community? And then make those 2 lists kind of come together. What can your church do to meet a practical need in your community? And then set out a plan to do that. It might be education. So maybe it's going to your local school and building a partnership with the school, with those families after VBS, because a lot of those kiddos are going to come to your VBS. So how can you get to know them throughout the year? Maybe it's through tutoring, or it's through assistance with school supplies. Maybe somebody in your church is being called to be trained as a substitute teacher, and you become part of that school by substituting. Maybe it's having devotions with the teachers, or before school starts, or joining the PTA. Whatever need you recognize in your community, figure out how your church can speak life into that need. And that begins to build a connection, not only inviting kids to come to VBS, but carrying on the connection after VBS. So brainstorm. What are some things that you can do to connect your church to your community? Because that's what the Lord's called us to do, to live outside the walls of our church, to be salt and light, to be disciples in the world that's around us. Simple doorstep visits after VBS. That's one of the things that our church does. We find a welcome bag and we go to all of the prospects and we knock on their door. It's a simple visit, takes only a few minutes, that says, hey, we are so glad that your family was with us for Vacation Bible School and we would love to have you come back to our church. And in that packet is an invitation to come to our Wednesday night fellowship meal, and it's free of charge to them. And so we are hopeful that they'll come back and share a meal with us and we'll get to know them some more. You could call or text parents. That's a great thing for folks who couldn't come during Vacation Bible School to help out. Maybe they could take a list of families home and text those families in a welcome message or a, hey, we're praying for you, or we're so thankful that your kids came to VBS, to begin a one-on-one connection. Supply your Sunday school teachers with a list of kids that match the kids that they teach on Sunday morning. Have them send a card or make a call or make a doorstep visit so that when that child comes to your church, they'll recognize the Sunday school teacher and they'll feel comfortable in that space. Share the names with your visitation ministry, those that go out and share the gospel on a regular basis, or your prayer ministry, your ongoing missions ministries, to share those names and information so that more people than just you guys in the VBS circle have those names and addresses and telephone numbers so that you can follow up with them. Create a follow-up event a few months after Vacation Bible School and invite those families to come back. It could be a back-to-school bash, or maybe it's your fall event or a parents' night out, something to intentionally target those VBS prospect families to come back to your church. And maybe if you've identified some needs that in your community there are a lot of grandparents that are raising their grandchildren, maybe you could have a grandparent support group. Or maybe you have a lot of young single moms and you could have a mom's class where you provide childcare. Or maybe it's a lot of single dads and you could create this experience with your men's ministry and that connect dads to other dads to build those relationships. Maybe it is English as a second language class, or maybe it's financial management, and offer those very practical life skills at your church or sponsored by your church at another location. So you get to do life on life with these families and encourage them and point them to Jesus through meeting very real physical needs that they have. You know, Vacation Bible School is not just this 1 week or this weekend experience. Vacation Bible School can be a tool that jumpstarts your entire missional focus for the year, both in evangelism and in discipleship. And VBS isn't just about kids and their families and young adults. Vacation Bible School is intergenerational. It is multi-generational, and it doesn't matter if you are an infant or a senior adult. There's a place for you in VBS. If it's not the actual VBS experience, then it's definitely in the promotion, in the follow-up, in the prayer. Vacation Bible School is not for a segment of the church. It's for the entire church. Listen to this quote from It's Worth It. It's one of my favorite. It says, God did not create us to be lonely. He made us to live in community. And there are very few times in the rhythm of church calendars that provide a whole week of human and multi-generational interaction for the sake of the kingdom of God. For that alone, VBS is worth it. VBS is worth it because it can be a strategic tool for church growth, and not only for the growth of your church, but for kingdom growth. Connecting men and women and boys and girls with the gospel so that they are experiencing Jesus for the very first time, or they are leading others to experience Jesus for the first time. Doing VBS well means we take a parallel approach of both evangelism and discipleship, bringing people into the kingdom and helping people to know Jesus more within the kingdom. So whether you're an engaging church or an exploring church, make sure that you focus well on this post-VBS experience where you are gathering your entire church family to engage in building the kingdom of God. And VBS really is just a jump start for that. So for our engaging churches, maybe this is the next level for you. you've done VBS well for years, but maybe haven't done a whole lot of post-VBS follow-up. Let this year be the year that you are different and you are strategic in building connections to families back to your church and to your church out into your community. For the exploring churches, as you're looking at this, you might be a small church and you're wondering about the resources that you have, and do you even have any children that would come? You know, this is a great opportunity for your church to step outside the walls to engage your community in a very real and practical way that meets needs for families. VBS can be a great beginning place for you as you are exploring how your church can make a difference in your community. Consider using VBS as that very starting place, whether it's for one day or an entire week, so that you can begin to build the kingdom in your city because of what you guys are doing intentionally by bringing Vacation Bible School back to your church, or by starting it again and letting kids and families experience God's love through your members. Guys, we've spent a lot of time together and we have covered a tremendous amount of information, and it can be overwhelming to digest all of that. And that's why it's so important that we spend time with the Lord and say, hey God, what is it that you want for my church and my church family at this particular time? And we spend time building a team of champions who support Vacation Bible School and who support discipleship and evangelism, and really see VBS as a tool to build our churches. It is, like I said before, it is not an easy task. It is a hard task, but it is a vital task, and it will be the most important thing that your church ever does. Vacation Bible School is still the greatest evangelistic emphasis that our churches have in this country. And I am hopeful that you will be able to catch the joy of VBS, so that whether you've done it so many years and you're kind of tired of it, or you're kind of overwhelmed to even begin it, you can begin seeing VBS just like we did in our first session, and that you can love VBS and love everything about it, and love how God uses your church and your congregation to expand the kingdom through Vacation Bible School.